Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Today is explanation of upcoming episode Throne of Seal based on novel. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. So let's start. Long Houchen gathered his comrades. Everyone heard about the benefits of the saw skates. It can be said that all parts of its body is a treasure. If possible, I wish to take along some saw skates. This won't only be of benefit to you and Yuan, but also serve to strengthen the alliance. If sold, we will gain from that contribution points, enabling us to get good equipment for the others. Without need for Long Houchen to say any further, everyone had eager looks. At the time of their encounter against the forest boa, everyone had the similar thoughts, that since they got the opportunity to encounter rare creatures from ancient times, they were unwilling to let go of their many benefits. The demon hunters were beings that grew from the blood of other living beings, and strengthening their power would always remain a top priority to them. They didn't find forest boars, but saw skates were now in front of them. We presently have to discuss our upcoming course of action. The main points are, first, to us, the most important aspect to emphasize is safety. No matter how great the benefits saw skates could bring us, we will have to go aim for them on the premise that everyone is to return safely. Long Houchen was resolute and decisive, because what he wished the least to see was his comrades taking unnecessary risks for the sake of benefits. Thus, he particularly emphasized this point. Afterwards, his look swept past the side of his comrades. After seeing them approve, he continued speaking. Then, what follows will be tight planning. Ordinary saw skates are already magical beasts of the 8th step, but a saw skate king is very possibly going to be just like a forest boa king, a powerful magical beast of 10th rank. This isn't anything we can face in our current state. In case we confront their saw skate king, there will be a great probability for casualties from our side. Thus, we can only aim for ordinary saw skates for now. To us, the best situation would be the case that this group of saw skates doesn't have a king among their ranks. However, being prepared doesn't hurt. We have to consider the worst situation. Everyone, give your suggestions. We will make our move afterwards. What followed was a time of rest and reorganization, as they discussed. Although the majority of the group couldn't recover spiritual energy in the Tower of Eternity, they didn't use up much before. But after entering the swamps of gloom, everyone became tense, and the Tower of Eternity became an effective place for them to relax and maintain a peak condition for the battle to come. After agreeing upon the tactics, Long Houchen didn't bring everyone back into the swamps of gloom to carry out their plans, but brought everyone to the second floor of the Tower of Eternity. Haiyue spread his pair of immense wings, floating on the faintly discernible clouds on the second floor. Everyone was on Haiyue's back, and the most perturbed was obviously Kia, who forgot everything from this place along with the rest of her memories. Having already come who knows how many times to train in this first floor, everyone was used to training their air battle tactics here. But until the time they left the Temple Alliance, they had yet to pass the 2 last tests of the second floor. And it was for the sake of keeping training his comrades in air battle that Long Houchen had been putting aside the matter of these last 2 tests. However, he now came to another decision. Haiyue was advancing in the sky under Long Houchen's lead, as the surrounding clouds were swept past his way. From afar, an immense golden sculpture could be vaguely seen. The checkpoints they passed before wouldn't reappear, and seeing that sculpture, Long Houchen had Haiyue stop advancing. Sima Xian raised a question. Boss, are we going to resume training now? But the consumed spiritual energy is going to be hard to recover. Long Houchen shook his head. Full of disdain, Lin Xin remarked, Baldai, do you have mud for brains? Don't you understand boss' intention? Boss wants us to raise our strength as a whole. Have a good look. Long Houchen didn't explain further, giving a smile before spreading out the 4 wings on his back, already flying over. In his hands, the rippling light and the aria of the goddess of light appeared simultaneously, and at the time of flight, the look on his eyes became suddenly sharp. Right before he was at the 20 meters marks, a green light suddenly appeared from nowhere, followed by the soundless appearance of a skeleton in midair. This skeleton looked quite bizarre, a bit smaller than the 11th Holy Guard in build, and had 2 more wings than Long Houchen on his back. Along with a flash of green fire burning inside of his body, an intense green light rushed forth from him. One could faintly see an intense wind element revolve all around him. The weapons of this skeleton were also quite special, differing from any existing one. These were 2 S-shaped daggers, also colored green. On top of the weapons, a pointed cone shape could be seen. Without a doubt, this weapon would really be destructive in case of a direct attack. A gaudy green flame pulsed severely in his 2 eyes. His body took almost a mere instant to look illusory. Being very familiar with this skeleton, everyone understood that it wasn't that he disappeared, but he accelerated to an extreme limit in a small amount of time, ready to let his speed break out completely anytime. Right, this green skeleton was a soul powerhouse, a powerful entity guarding the second floor. And after everyone reached the second floor, their genuine air battle instructor was him. That was a powerful skeleton with an excellent affinity with wind. Seeing him, everyone including Long Houchen shivered. They had been in the past abused quite severely by this green skeleton. His monstrous speed remained fresh in their memories. Long Houchen respectfully performed a standard knight salute in front of this green skeleton, before expanding the 4 wings on his back and letting the powerful holy fire soar around him. In the swamps of gloom, the 11th and the 12th Holy Guards used their own strength and battle tactics to prove their value, and just like Lin Xin said, Long Houchen already made his preparations to subdue this powerful skeleton, which was most likely the 10th Holy Guard, thus increasing the strength of their team. In front of these extremely fast sword skates, the utility of the 10th Holy Guard would undoubtedly be massive. This was at the core of the plans Long Houchen had in mind. It was something that came to his mind when Long Houchen and his comrades discussed a countermeasure for the situation. Right at the instant Long Houchen's body strided forward, the green skeleton made his move. With an indescribable sight, he appeared at an extreme speed, as if crushing everyone's scenery the instant he moved. Even in the previous battle, everyone relied almost only on their instincts and perception when learning air battle tactics with him, because their eyes were simply unable to keep up with the green skeleton's moves. From this, it could be seen how terrifying his speed was. With a dim flash of green light, his back faced the back of Long Houchen, following with a standard assassin double backstab aimed backwards, aiming for Long Houchen's ribs. That green skeleton didn't even turn back, simply holding his daggers in the opposite direction. At the same time as he acted, Long Houchen also moved. He actually didn't attempt to dodge, but aimed a backstab backward just like the green skeleton. Only, his was with a single sword and not 2. Before the instant of clash with the green skeleton, the rippling light in his left hand was already gripped backwards. The green skeleton was indeed moving at extreme speed. Long Houchen understood well that if he tried to avoid it, he would be caught in his opponent's rhythm, and after that, winning would be really hard. Thus, he might as well not escape but stake everything on an attempt to resist. The speed of the green skeleton was really terrifying. Once it got used to the pattern of Long Houchen's movements, the pair of daggers in its hands suddenly erupted. Producing 2 splashes of green light, they stabbed at Long Houchen's armor before actually stopping the assault, flapping the 6 wings on its back downwards to rise up to the sky. Afterwards, its left foot aimed a kick at the back of Long Houchen's head. If the red skeleton known as the 12th Holy Guard could be said to be moving as freely as clouds in the sky, then this one was like a green bolt of lightning, moving absurdly fast. Matching his speed was unthinkable to anyone present there. Long Houchen didn't have these thoughts at all either, and the wings on his back flapped to the left, causing his body to make an instant turn. Then his 4 wings came to a sudden stop, and his head moved backwards, forcibly colliding against the green skeleton. With a light sound, Long Houchen felt his body shaking, while the green skeleton fell back softly. Right, exactly because of his monstrous speed, the skeleton could only be described as ordinary in attack and defense. After Long Houchen's external spiritual energy got strengthened multiple times, it reached a considerable level, at least on par with the level of his internal spiritual energy. In some sense, he appeared simply like a demon. From bathing in the Devil Dragon cores or his recent boost of power stemming from Haoyue's evolution, Long Houchen obtained a considerably tough body. Thus, upon clashing directly, he actually suffered no loss. At the same time, he finally managed to seize an opportunity for himself. Since coming here, he didn't have the intention to train in combat with the green skeleton, but to thoroughly defeat him and gain his services. The aria of the Goddess of Light chopped forward. From his blow in midair, everyone could sense Long Houchen's changes. He didn't look like a man anymore, but gave the impression of being a congregation of stars, as if everything was in his grasp. Everyone clearly saw Long Houchen disappear right after completing this sword strike, leaving only an inexhaustible sword intent in the air. A sword intent combining his sword intent, sword heart, and sword technique. After the battle against Arbao, Long Houchen's comprehension regarding sword intent increased to a new level, and this sword strike seemed not to leave the slightest trace. It instantly appeared and dealt a decisive checkmate against its opponent. That instant, the lightning-like green skeleton came to a forceful standstill in midair. It had no choice but to stop, because if it kept moving forward, it was very likely that the following instant, Long Houchen's aria of the Goddess of Light would slice through it. And that blow full of sword intent wasn't something its body could bear. With a dim flicker of light, Long Houchen's eyes revealed an expression full of conviction. Even Long Houchen didn't expect his attack, which used his sword heart, to be of such importance. The aria of the Goddess of Light seemed to be letting out a cheerful sound. This burst of sword intent was truly overwhelming, to the extent that the power of the aria of the Goddess of Light seemed to be fully used by Long Houchen right then. A terrible sword intent filled the air, and the nimble green skeleton was locked by the sword intent. Even if Long Houchen wasn't able to know his ever-changing location, that green skeleton was trapped in a web. Right then, a golden figure appeared noiselessly at Long Houchen's back. Immediately, two resonant dragon cries echoed, gushing out with two large pillars of light from Long Houchen's back, heading straight at this green skeleton. Dual dragons of light and rain, one of Long Houchen's past offensive techniques, finally reappeared in the battlefield. Right, Blue Rain, Hibiscus of Light resurrected. After Kia lost her memories, Yating told Long Houchen right after recovering her spiritual energy that Blue Rain, Hibiscus of Light, which was Long Houchen's most powerful weapon, went through a complete resurrection, and was now back to being Long Houchen's weapon. However, Long Houchen already had Rippling Light as secondary weapon, so he didn't immediately take it out, until now when it was suddenly reused. The powerful binding ability of Dual Dragon of Light and Rain gained in strength with Long Houchen and Yating, immediately playing a decisive role. A dense golden color noiselessly bound the shoulder of the green skeleton, leaving it unable to move. And Long Houchen's eyes were staring fixedly at it. Right, even without using the dual dragons of light and rain, Long Houchen had certainty to come victorious against this green skeleton. But if he did so, he wasn't able to guarantee that this green skeleton would be unharmed. After all, its speed was really great, and without powerful battle techniques, stopping it would prove to be hard. Long Houchen's unyielding sword intent would very possibly tear its body to shreds. Although this wouldn't kill it for real, this green skeleton would need a long time to be nurtured by the eternal melody to possibly recover completely. And Long Houchen needed its strength right now, so he wasn't willing to wait for its recovery. Thus, this battle was planned with utmost care. After the green skeleton passed a short amount of time in stupor, the gaudy green light in its eyes gradually darkened, and bowing down, it declared to Long Houchen, "The 10th Holy Guard salutes Master." With a glint of green light, it instantly broke free from the dual dragons of light and rain, entering the eternal melody on Long Houchen's chest. Showing a smile, Long Houchen accomplished his first goal. With the help of this green skeleton in battle, his plans were a lot closer to completion. The blue and gold Blue Rain, Hibiscus of Light, appeared calmly in midair. Seeing it, Long Houchen felt a great sense of familiarity. This heavy sword was connected to him by a blood contract. After recovering the rippling light and the aria of the Goddess of Light, Long Houchen waved his hand, calling Blue Rain, Hibiscus of Light to come to his hand. To his surprise, the contract linking him to this heavy sword seemed to have strengthened since its resurrection. And the aura spreading from the sword was incomparable to before, as if it had evolved to some extent, reaching the level of an authentic legendary tier weapon. This ability to evolve was one of the strongest areas of Blue Rain, Hibiscus of Light. Sensing the aquatic feeling from it, he slowly came to understand the changes on it. It resulted from their contract, the contract between the man and his sword. As his understanding on sword intent increased, the acceptance of any sword in his hand increased. The others watched fixedly, and although they stayed silent, the looks on their faces gained fervor. As their captain was growing stronger and stronger, they felt more and more distance between them. But this discouraged no one in the team, because as Long Houchen's growth continued, their growth was also guaranteed. Everyone had this clear feeling. Long Houchen's strength was certainly growing fast, but along with that, the advantages they would gain would keep increasing, and he would show no reservations to share them with his teammates. Thus, the others were not only having no feeling of jealousy regarding his gain of strength, but also wished for him to keep growing stronger and stronger. With such a captain, what they aimed to do was to follow Long Houchen in his footsteps, letting themselves be as close to him as possible. Let's keep going. Long Houchen's voice pulled everyone back from their train of thoughts, revealing a great surprise on their faces. The green skeleton called the 10th Holy Guard was already subdued, so why continue? Didn't that mean to aim straight for the goal of conquering the last trial on this second floor of the Tower of Eternity? With the 10th Holy Guard swearing allegiance to him, the distant sculpture became clearer to their eyes. Without a doubt, only one last test remained on the second floor. Long Houchen turned around and explained, "I am confident that after passing this last trial, we will keep encountering powerful enemies in succession inside of the Swamps of Gloom. We will even have to confront the devil snake demon god Andromalius afterwards. The Tower of Eternity is our only means to gain strength immediately. If I am not mistaken, we are going to face the 9th Holy Guard next. If his ability is as I guessed, in a land of death that the swamps of gloom are, he will be of massive help to us, boss. Let's do it. Simon's Jan showed their captain his clenched fists. Long Houghton revealed a slight smile, before spreading out the 4 wings on his back, and reverting blue rain, hibiscus of light in his left hand. His right hand glinted with a hint of gold, and the aria of the goddess of light reappeared in his grasp. It could be said that currently, Long Houghton was at his peak state of equipment. From the huge dual sword in his hands alone, even if one were to only look at him, they would sense the terrifying offensive power from it. Slowly advancing by flight, Long Houghton regained a calm demeanor. That was because that blow right before, filled with inexhaustible sword intent, produced a particular burst of insight. Although this insight was still unclear, he clearly understood that his comprehension on sword intent gained another layer, and that he was already close to the boundary the divine sword-wielder Yi Wushang attained in the past. This could be seen from the approval of the aria of the goddess of light towards him. The massive sculpture gradually became more distinct. Shaped the same as the one on the first floor, it gave the group the same impression of having reached the end of the floor, if not for the wide environment of fog and mist all around. The sculpture of the holy necromancer, slumbering calamity Elux floated there, as if the clouds and mist were carrying its weight. In front of it was a tall skeleton, sitting cross-legged. This skeleton was entirely yellow-colored. When Long Houghton's group closed in, faint radiances of yellow light started to be emitted from his body. Long Houghton's eyes were filled with surprise. They were indeed confronted with the 9th Holy Guard, soul of a powerhouse, whose attribute was as he expected. The earth element. Although Long Houghton didn't know why the slumbering calamity Elux would install an earth elemental Holy Guard to conduct the final aerial battle of this floor, his vigilance was even higher than before, when he fought against the green skeleton. If not for his identity of necromancer, Long Houghton had no choice but to admit that he would cheerfully submit to the slumbering calamity Elux. An ancestor who set up a miraculous place such as the Tower of Eternity, that retained such great ability even after 10,000 years. Just what level of knowledge was needed to attain this? Being an intelligent boy, he reached the conclusion that if Elux was compared to himself, his current self was far below him, far too negligible to even compare. And thus, he was completely sure that Elux certainly had his own reasons to place a user of the Earth attribute as the last test of the 2nd floor. Elux's sculpture remained unmoving, sitting there and seemingly gazing at everyone. Only the Earth elemental yellow skeleton stood up from its cross-legged position. Its height was very close to the red skeleton, the 12th Holy Guard, but its build appeared sturdier, and the shoulders were wider. This gave it an overwhelmingly steady frame, as if standing as firm as a mountain. A faint yellow radiance lit up on its back, revealing 2 spreading yellow bone wings, keeping its body floating in mid-air. A glittering yellow radiance suddenly ignited in its 2 dim white-colored eyes. Right, they were white, and not yellow. Long Houghton was shocked, and a lot of thoughts immediately came to his mind. This yellow skeleton was visibly not weak in strength, and perhaps already surpassed the 7th step. As he was in deep thoughts, the 2 hands of the yellow skeletons moved simultaneously, creating a yellow barrier in front of Long Houghton. The soft energy it was emanating pushed him 10 meters away. Then, that yellow radiance was followed by a wave, sweeping everything away. It not only enveloped him, but also Haiyue and the others at his back. That instant, the clouds and mist covering the whole 2nd floor turned yellow. A hard-to-describe terrible and massive energy suddenly appeared in the air, frantically pulling them downwards. Gravity. Long Houghton instantly understood the ability used by this yellow skeleton. This should be the lost gravity techniques, used in ancient times by Earth mags. The wings on Long Houghton's back frantically flapped in an attempt to steady his posture. But this gravity was even stronger than he expected, and even with over 14,000 units of spiritual energy, he was still unable to stay firm, and was still pulled downwards little by little. On the other side, Haiyue had even more difficulties, given his massive and extremely heavy body, which fell a lot faster. By chance, the others with the exception of Cai reacted quickly, holding Haiyue's body up while releasing their own spiritual wings to help him resist the huge gravity. This barely prevented Haiyue from falling down. The expression in the eyes of the yellow skeleton was somewhat cold and indifferent, only watching these people in silence through his soul fire. It displayed a visible sense of pride. It was something that wasn't seen in the 3 previous Holy Guards. And right now, this yellow skeleton visibly felt disdain to act against them. In its opinion, Long Houghton and his comrades were already unable to resist against the gravity. And it was indeed the case. Long Houghton clearly felt that his own spiritual energy was being depleted at an astonishing speed. If this went on, his comrades and he himself would fall into the first floor of the Tower of Eternity before long, but more importantly, the consumption of spiritual energy from his comrades was unrecoverable in the Tower of Eternity, which would affect their future plans, bring them back to the first floor. Their plans were going to be affected at this rate, so Long Houchen promptly came to this decision. He still had some trump cards, but was hesitating on whether to use them or not, since he would need some time to recover afterwards. But right this moment, a grey radiance suddenly appeared in his view. Although sparkling, that grey light wasn't bright, and seemed to fill the air with grey luster. A pair of black wings flapped on her back, carrying this sparkling grey radiance, as Caio's wings glittered like snowflakes. She was unexpectedly unaffected by the changes in gravity. Appearing instantly in front of that yellow skeleton, she swept the scythe of the god of death, which emanated a flash of coldness, aiming for the yellow skeleton. All of this happened so sudden and fast, that although Kia's body was still incomparable to the green skeleton called the 10th Holy Guard, it was still coming close to a certain level. Without a doubt, the yellow skeleton was filled with more human emotions than the other 3 Holy Guards. It had pride, self-satisfaction, and was full of self-confidence. In its view, these opponents didn't match its strength and wouldn't be able to resist against the gravity technique. But conversely, his arrogance was also its biggest weakness. Kia's body was unaffected by the gravity, and the instant she started her high-speed flight, the yellow skeleton felt as if the whole air was split apart. The next instant, an overflowing killing intent appeared in front of it. Long Houchen was massively astonished. Never did he expect Kia to intervene so suddenly, completely negating the threat brought by the gravity technique. When Kia wielded the scythe of the god of death, the coldness in her eyes made him think that she regained her memories. This shook and pleased Long Houchen even more than the massive offensive power coming from Kia's attack. "Is Kia, my Kia, back?" Feeling his eyes warming up, some liquid started to leak from Long Houchen's eyes. The yellow skeleton was as expected powerful. Kia's arrival was very sudden, but its pride wasn't baseless either. While drawing back, it erected an earth wall without any warning, and although it was almost crushed by the scythe of the god of death, it still adapted promptly. But right that instant, the powerful killing intent emitted from Kia's body disappeared without a trace. For some time, the yellow skeleton stared blankly, but its movements didn't come to a stop. It was as if its battle instincts were engraved deep into its bones. At any time, it was thinking of the next move, and its instinct was on the move before everything else. Its large and strong hands suddenly came together, and immediately, a yellow barrier spread around it. This seemed a bit like the resisting fire ring of a fire mage, but its spell covered all directions, and was visibly a lot stronger. Being an earth spell of the 6th step, it combined both attack and defense as one. And furthermore, never forget that it was done instantly. But Kia's pitch-black figure appeared noiselessly behind its back the instant the spell was completed. A sparkling grey color suddenly flashed out in midair, followed immediately by a splitting noise. The scythe of the god of death let out mournful hissing sounds, forced by its wielder into the small cracks. Immediately, the character for death appeared on the body of that yellow skeleton, in a sparkling grey color. Her black figure passed in a flash, before the surrounding powerful gravity disappeared completely. When Kia regained her footing on Haoyue's back, the murderous intent emanating from her body disappeared, and all that remained was her large blinking eyes, looking doubtful. It was as if she had no idea of what she just did. Everyone was staring somewhat blankly, even Haoyue. Expressions of extreme shock filled the eyes on his 5 large heads. The grey word of death gradually disappeared, and the yellow skeleton reappeared in front of everyone. It was only that the yellow flames in its eyes had stopped pulsing, and the next instant, its body fell apart, turning into yellow dust that dissipated in the sky. A yellow flash of light appeared, and the body of the yellow skeleton formed anew. It was only that this time, it was a lot larger than that of the 11th and the 12th Holy Guard at the time Long Houchen's group cleared the first floor. No less than a quarter of an hour later, the figure of the yellow skeleton recondensed. It was just that the yellow flame in its eyes was a lot weaker than before. He looked with some fright at Kia, who was standing on Haoyue, completely at a loss about the situation. Shortly staying still, it seemed like a frightened human recovering its own wits. Then the guard bowed down before Long Houchen. "Master, the 9th Holy Guard is willing to serve you." Compared to the other 3 Holy Guards, this one's voice was a lot clearer, only somewhat weak. After his voice echoed, this 9th Holy Guard retransformed into a ball of yellow light, flying directly at Long Houchen, and merging back with the eternal melody. Producing a burst of heat, the eternal melody kept flashing with a golden radiance on Long Houchen's chest. Long Houchen could sense that it was as though this 9th Holy Guard was restoring himself through the energy contained in the eternal melody. This situation appeared before when the 11th and the 12th Holy Guard sustained heavy damage, but it wasn't so distinct during those times. From this, the severity of the damage inflicted by Kia could be seen. Even the Tower of Eternity was unable to completely restore the skeleton's body. Then the words that Yi Xiaolei told Long Haochen behind surfaced to his mind. Being the one chosen by the god of death, Kia's inheritance contained the transcending strength of the god of death, whose power surpassed any other being. It seemed as if the soul of this yellow skeleton called the 9th Holy Guard sustained quite heavy wounds. Thus he appeared so dispirited. How could Kia's strength have reached such a terrifying level? Just then, during her last attack, it was undoubtedly the strength she obtained through her awakening as a god's chosen one that surfaced. This seemed to be a technique, yet didn't resemble one. Ever since the dagger of Samsara changed into the scythe of the god of death, which became Kia's primary weapon, Long Haochen was unable to assess her actual strength. But on her last attack, when he asked himself whether he would be able to resist if the one she attacked with that force was him, he reached the conclusion that it would not only need him to go all out and exert the full power of his sword intent, but even to borrow strength from the goddess of light to do so. This way, it would be possible for him to resist, but without certainty. It wasn't that Kia's strength was higher than Long Haochen's, quite the opposite, her current strength was still quite below Long Haochen. However, Kia's spiritual stove and the weapon in her hand were just too formidable. When transforming into the scythe of death, the dagger of Samsara became a genuine divine artifact. Even after awakening, Kia was presently still unable to bring out its real might. Flapping the 4 wings on his back, Long Haochen joined Kia's side. "Kia, how are you feeling? Are you all right?" Given how she just used such a powerful ability, Long Haochen was afraid of the backlash she might have suffered. Kia murmured, 7 arts of the god of death. First art, premature death. Long Haochen took a deep breath. He understood that these 7 arts of the god of death were similar to her past uses of the spiritual stove of Samsara, only even more powerful. Not giving him the time to keep questioning her, Kia raised her head to look at him. "I am all right. I have just been feeling a bit constrained just before, and then it became like that. Then I got the feeling that if I kept using that power, I would lose something in return." By chance, he was handled in one move. Long Haochen understood Kia well, and hearing this explanation, he finally relaxed, while starting to somewhat understand the secret behind these 7 arts of the god of death. "Kia, listen to me." Long Haochen gave her a very serious look, grabbing her shoulders with his hands. Now devoid of the 2 swords he retrieved just before, the power you used just before cannot be used rashly. And even if you use it, you cannot use any other move than the one you just have used before. Understood? Otherwise, you will be in danger of losing your 6 senses. It's only your first use that will be without backlash, and this is only due to the effects of the spiritual stove fused with your body. But still, never use it without precaution unless it is absolutely the last means. Do you understand? Seeing the troubled look on Long Haochen's face, Kia immediately felt somewhat tepid, nodding earnestly. Deep inside, she began reflecting on the extent of the power she just used, having some faint understanding of it. At least, she began knowing this ability of hers even better after her loss of memories. Right at this time, the sculpture before them suddenly lit up, spreading a soft golden radiance. As if coming to life, that sculpture exuded massive fluctuations of spiritual energy, causing everyone to feel tremendous pressure. "Congratulations, my child. The trials of the 2nd floor are all cleared. You may keep going on, I will be waiting for you at the final test. Since you passed the 2nd floor, you have enough ability to defend yourself, but to really succeed my inheritance, your current strength is far from sufficient. You will need to become a lot stronger, and even more determined. Only with the resolution to keep pressing forward will you be able to reach the other shore. I will be waiting there for you. On your following journey, you will have to go upwards with your own strength. Before you reach the 6th floor, I won't give you any other reward than the holy guards you conquer. I firmly believe that you will make it to my side." Pop, a golden pillar of light abruptly appeared, and as if piercing the floor, it passed through the boundary of this 2nd floor, becoming the way to the 3rd floor. Seeing that straight pillar of light, Long Haochen felt somewhat disappointed. He originally believed that since there was no boost to their spiritual energy on this floor, they would at least find some equipment as reward. But things didn't turn out as he wished, and he finally didn't gain any other reward than the 2 holy guards. However, his disappointment only lasted for a little moment. Quickly, Long Haochen felt relieved. As the saying goes, give man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you will feed him for a lifetime. On this 2nd floor, they already learned about aerial battle. Wasn't this even more important than equipment? Furthermore, with the assistance from the two holy guards, the combined strength of their team already surpassed the overwhelming majority of the King Great Demon Hunt squads. Of course, that Earth Elemental 9th Holy Guard still needed some time of recovery to regain the ability to battle. At the time he was facing Kia just before, his strength was visibly not even brought out completely. It was just that all his abilities were restrained by Kia's overwhelming side of the God of Death. Together with the underestimation of his enemy, the final result was his defeat by Kia's 7 arts of the God of Death. The swamps of gloom were still as dark, and as night was nearing, the poisonous marsh gas in the air became heavier and heavier. The lake where the source gates were living was perhaps the only pure land out there. Ripples frequently appeared on the surface of this clear water, composed of pure minerals. This lake wasn't very deep, only roughly 2 or 3 meters. If one were to look down at the lake from the surface, he would find that some faint silver light occasionally flashed downwards. Although the source gates looked fierce, they were actually herbivorous magical beasts, with no interest in meat. The abundant water plants in the lake, as well as the soft vines prospering in this environment, were their favorite food. At times they would need to eat, so skates would feed in groups. Taking the shape of flickers of silver light, they cut some tough vines into pieces, before disappearing. Their feeding time generally didn't last long, because they were just too fast, and once they left, the lake would regain its calm. The hierarchy in a community of source skates wasn't determined the same way as among ordinary magical beasts. The size of the silver chunk of skin on their back determined the difference in power. Thus, the source skates with the brightest silver color were the stronger ones out of the lot. Matured source skates were magical beasts of the 8th rank, among which those with particular talent would have the hope to reach the 9th rank. And their king was an authentic magical beast of the 10th rank, powerful enough to make a forest boa king cower before it. This was one of the true kings in the swamps of gloom. A dim light quietly appeared in a distance from the source gate's location, covering approximately 2 meters in diameter. Immediately, one figure after another emerged from it, immediately releasing their spiritual wings. Long Houchen pointed at the sky, and everyone followed him up there. This time, he didn't release his holy mantle to dispel the poison in its range for everyone. A holy mantle would undoubtedly increase their consumption marginally, but with that, they wouldn't need to stay gathered so closely anymore. Long Houchen nodded to everyone, and the group rapidly scattered in the fog. Red, blue and green radiances appeared in front of Long Houchen the next instant, bowing before him. Long Houchen then murmured some words in the ears of the green skeleton. The 10th Holy Guard nodded in response, and with a flap of the 6 wings at his back, flew forward like a green bolt of lightning. At this time, on Long Houchen's side, only Kia, Simas Yan and Wang Yuanyuan were present. Chen Yinga wasn't part of this operation, and Lin Xin and Han Yu were nowhere to be seen. Hao Yue also flew away right after appearing, not even using his ability of poison resistance. He was together with Lin Xin and Han Yu as they went off. Long Houchen nodded to the 3 and the 11th and 12th Holy Guard at his side, prepared to begin the plan. Meanwhile, he slowly raised the 2 heavy swords in his hands, which gradually turned white while he entered a mystical state. They were about 20 meters high in the air, which was the highest altitude an ordinary source skates could reach. This was something Long Houchen determined in the previous battle. The clear lake serving as dwelling place of the source skates was already calming down, and as nightfall was nearing, the source skates in the water were calming down. They were already past their meal time, and the overwhelming majority was fast asleep. Source skates were a kind of magical beasts which was very fond of sleeping, and although their offense was tremendous, their notion of territory was even more important. They wouldn't easily leave their resting place, unless encountering a situation like the appearance of Long Houchen's group here. Hao Yue's attack had undoubtedly been seen as the greatest provocation to them, raising a situation of no death no rest. But to their misfortune, with the use of the mysterious power of teleportation of Long Houchen's eternal melody, they lost their target. Even if they had even worse tempers, what could they do to vent without any target? After ruining the surrounding vegetation, they finally returned in anger to the lake. But right in that instant, another unwelcome guest appeared. A hidden figure noiselessly appeared 30 meters away from the lake. Its silhouette was concealed right behind vines, disclosing no trace of its presence nor any sound of breath. A blue gleam pulsed in the soul fire in his eye, sweeping over everything ahead. After he stopped shortly, the blue gleam in his eyes suddenly pointed down, as if sending a signal. After spending a short time pondering, the previously seen pair of strange daggers appeared in the hands of the 10th Holy Guard. As his figure flashed, the 6 wings on his back flapped, and he took an instant to reach the side of the lake. The daggers in his hands were crossed in the movement, as 2 bolts of green light flew dimly at the limpid lake. Those two green lights produced ear-piercing shrieks, sharply bursting in one instant on the surface of the water. They weren't aiming at the insides of the lake, but only at the surface. Immediately, a green tornado of a diameter exceeding 1 meter appeared above the clear lake. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.